Hey everyone, if you're planning to motor west, you could travel my way. It's the highway that's the best. And if you haven't figured it out yet, I'm Jefferson Graham. I'm here with Rhys Martin. Rhys knows all things Route 66. He is the president of the Oklahoma Route 66 Association. He's a great photographer and a chronicler of the Mother Road. So I just want to thank Rhys for being here.
Thank you, sir. It's a pleasure to be here, and you're very kind. I wouldn't say I know everything about the road, but I am a bit of a nerd. So
You know a lot about the road, a lot more than most people do, and you're coming to us live from beautiful Tulsa, Oklahoma, right?
that's right, the self-proclaimed capital of Route 66.
Lots of great neon, lots of great Art Deco, and lots of fun to visit. But I want to just sort of open up with, you know, as many people know, recently did 3 weeks on the road, Route 66 from Chicago to LA. I would do it differently today. I would spend more time, and I probably most people don't have that kind of time. I feel I only saw about half of it. I was wondering, Rhys, what you recommend to people. I know you've done the ride. What do you tell people in making their planning for the trip like this?
Well, the first thing I say is don't try to see everything. There's no way to do that. You're going to miss something. You're going to feel like you've run out of time. Don't obsess over, I've got to do absolutely everything. It's more important to take your time and to enjoy the things that you do choose to experience. But if someone does come to me with kind of a blank check question saying, well, how much time should I spend on Route 66? For most folks, about 3 weeks. If they have that kind of time, that gives you enough time to stop, visit with people, make sure you spend time at the museums, enjoy your meals at these great diners, and not feel like you're rushing too terribly bad. Uh, you know, I mean, some people will say, "Well, I only have a week," and you have some folks in the Route 66 communities that say, "Well, it's not worth it if you're only going to take a week. You're going to spend most of your time on the interstate." And I mean, that's true, but everyone's got to start somewhere. And even if you can only hop off a couple of times here and there, hopefully it'll encourage you to come back and spend more time.
My problem is that in that 3 week period, of which it was really about 2.5 weeks driving because I spent 4 days in Chicago, I just felt like I was zipping through so many things that I wanted to see, but I couldn't because I was booked. And I would have, I think some of the rural Illinois things got missed,
Mm.
rural Missouri things got missed. I didn't get to a cave. Apparently, you always want to go to a cave. And how do you handle that? Most people at this stage in our lives book. They're scheduled to be somewhere every night.
Yeah, and that I run into that all the time where folks say, "Well, this is really great, but I've got to get to this hotel tonight by this time, and if I don't leave now, I won't make it." And Route 66 is all about the experience. And so I encourage people, there are a few places that, like the Blue Swallow Motel in Tucumcari or maybe the Wigwam Motel in San Bernardino, California, that are like these great experiences that people say, no matter what, I've got to stay here. Great. Book that ahead and do your best to judge your time there. But leave yourself open otherwise to, because some days are going to last a lot longer than you expect. You might go somewhere like Gary's Gay Parita in Missouri and talk to George and Barb, and you expect to take 10 minutes and it ends up being 2 hours. And that's going to definitely change the trajectory of your day. So, I can relate to that. I'm very much the planner when we go on vacation, my wife and I, and I'm like, okay, well, we're going to do this, this, and this, and this. And Route 66 just doesn't quite work that way.
Um, yeah. So again, I would do 4 to 5 weeks if I could. I'd like to just do the trip all over again, and
Mm.
see all the things that I didn't see, which was a lot. I saw the pictures. I saw which we will be showing shortly. But I did the wigwams and the Blue Swallow and the Cadillac Ranch and all the classics. So I hit all those. But just like there was the town of Miami, that how you
Uh-huh.
pronounce it? That's in Oklahoma.
Congratulations.
Yeah, that's in Oklahoma, right? Miami.
It is very
And
northeast corner.
just didn't have the time. Just couldn't do it. And I wish I could have. And then the other thing is to schedule it, your timing, so that you're always catching sunset in all the key parts. And that was a hard thing.
Yeah, I fell in love with the road originally as a photographer, so I'm real keen on being someplace sunset where I can get some good pictures and stuff like that. But again, it really it's the people along Route 66 that are its greatest asset and the greatest part of the experience. And you just got to give yourself time to talk to these folks and hear their story, and they're going to want to know yours. And But yeah, you can spend as much time on the road as you want, and it's never going to quite feel like enough.
Okay. Meeting the people such as yourself on a rainy day in Tulsa, that was my favorite. Those are some of my highlights. But the one thing that people ask me all the time, and it's a very hard question to answer, is so what was the one greatest thing you saw on Route 66? That's an impossible thing to answer. And I'm sure you get asked that question all the time, and you're probably as dumbfounded as I am. Uh, it's just impossible, right?
It is. It's like picking a favorite child, and I mean, it's more than 2,400 miles. How do you pick something out of that entire corridor and say this is the thing? And it just depends on the mood and that kind of thing. Even if someone says, okay, well, what about the best in Oklahoma? That's still difficult. Well, what's the best thing to see in Tulsa? Well, I don't know. What do you like to do? And I can pick and choose different things out there. I have favorite pictures I've taken on Route 66, but again, that's very dependent on the time of day. And maybe I just talked to somebody really cool. Like, it's going to be different for everybody. But if I have to give a single answer to what's the greatest thing about traveling Route 66, it's the time on the road itself, slowing down a little bit and kind of settling into that cadence of, I'm not going somewhere to get there, I'm going somewhere to take the journey itself.
Okay. By the way, Chris says that my mic is soft compared to Rhys's. I hope this is louder now. Chris, you'll let me know. But Rhys, my answer is exactly the same. What's the greatest thing you saw on Route 66? Anytime I was on the open road, anytime I was on a back road and experiencing new things and being out there off the highway, whether that be rural Oklahoma, rural Illinois, rural Missouri, pulling off the road and finding the Elvis sighting in Illinois, in Joliet, right? And the 66 drive-in is that Chandler? Chandler, Oklahoma, right?
So in Oklahoma, you've got the TP Drive-In, which is in Sapulpa, and then you have the 66 Drive-In in Carthage, Missouri. You've got Chandler has a really great armory right in the middle
Oh,
of
I'm
Route
sorry.
66.
Chandler has the 66 bowl.
That's right.
Right? Yeah, that was it. So the 66 drive-in near Joplin, and then the 66 bowling alley. Never seen anything like it. The wildest, craziest bowling alley of all time. Yeah, and I don't have pictures to show you, but in the what state are we talking about again? That's in
Oklahoma.
Oklahoma. Okay, so in the
Yeah.
Oklahoma episode that will be out the week after next, you'll get to experience that. So anytime on the open road, which begs the question now, Rhys, really hard for a lot of people when they make their California trip, as Nat King Cole called it. You're on the highway. You're on Route 66. You're on the highway. You're on Route 66. You're on the highway. Getting to Route 66 is a challenge. GPS, anybody who relies on Google Maps and Apple Maps and Waze, they will, as far as they're concerned, there is no Route 66. You can only take the highway. How do you handle this, Rhys, and what do you tell people?
So that's a big question that gets bigger every year because more people are dependent on that kind of technology. And the purpose of Google Maps and those things are to get you where you're going as quickly and as conveniently as possible. And that's not the point of Route 66. In a lot of areas, it's not even called 66. There are no signs. You just kind of have to know where you're going. I mean, roughly, 80, 82% of the old road is still out there and you can drive it. You just got to know where to find it. So there are two solutions that I give folks. One is there's a actual guidebook called the EZ66 Guide, written by Jerry McClanahan. He's from Chandler, Oklahoma also, which is a detailed turn-by-turn direction that provides the easiest way to stay on Route 66 where you can, where to hop onto the interstate, where to get back off of it, things to see while you're doing. It's one of those books that it's so detailed and full of not just words, but like his illustrations and everything that you look at this spiral booklet and it can be a little overwhelming at first because you don't quite get it. But once you're on the road and you're reading it, everything makes sense as far as go here, turn left, you're going to see this thing. It's like the turn left at the red barn. Here's the name of the street. For folks that are more digital, there are a couple of apps out there that try to help keep people on Route 66. The one that I've used is called Route 66 Navigation. It's got a little yellow icon. These things are all put together by really passionate Route 66 supporters and fans. And they had those experiences where they were trying to travel Route 66 and struggled, and said, well, you know what, we need better tools for this. I mean, even here in Oklahoma, our association, the biggest thing we do every year is put out a newspaper bound guidebook that has maps for each of the towns in Oklahoma to help people find the road and then stay on it as they travel.
What are you going to do? The Centennial, which I didn't even mention, the Centennial is next year. I believe it's November, 100 years of Route 66. And we need more signs. We need more signs for people. What are you doing about that?
Well, so that's the difficulty. In 1985, it stopped being a federal highway. It's under local jurisdiction now. Sometimes that's the city, sometimes that's the county, sometimes that's the state. And so some areas are working to improve signage. The state of Oklahoma's Department of Transportation invested quite a bit of money back in 2021 to add a ton of signs and refresh the signage across the state. You do that, and then sometimes signs can go missing. Some towns are really plugged in to adding signage and wayfinding. Other ones are, just like anything in a city, you got to handle your police and fire and everything else. And road signs are not very high up on the list when you have other services to provide. So it's a bit of a patchwork, which is interesting because the road started as a patchwork when it was created in 1926, and we've kind of returned to that kind of world. But everyone is aware that signage needs to be improved. It's just a matter of having the resources to do that. And with the Centennial coming up, a lot of groups are engaged to try to make that happen, to make it as easily traversable as possible next year.
All right. Centennial is in November, correct, of 2026?
November 11th, but you might, that's a Wednesday next year, and you might think, well, November's kind of late in the year, and that's right. So, I talk to my counterparts in the other 7 states pretty regularly. We're all planning different things, and it's going to be literally a year-long celebration, but the actual birthday is November 11th, 2026.
When do you expect celebrations to begin? Would that be next spring?
First one I know of is actually going to be November 11th of this year, right around that time, to mark 1 year until the birthday, to give a full 12 months of celebrating. There's a cruise happening in January. Folks going to the Detroit Auto Show, and they're taking Route 66 to get there from California, to Chicago anyway, then hopping over to Detroit. April 30th is the big national kickoff event in Springfield, Missouri. Springfield is known as the birthplace of Route 66 because that's where the telegram was sent to Washington, where everyone accepted the number. There was a huge controversy behind it, and I could go into that.
Let's slow down because we're gonna explain a bunch of that.
Yes,
but the celebration starts in November in Springfield, Missouri.
The national kickoff is April 30th of 26. But the first event I know of being organized is actually going to be in Arizona, November of this year, to mark 1 year until the birthday.
And where in Arizona?
In Kingman, at the Powerhouse Museum.
Okay, which of course is in the song. And if
That's
you
right.
don't remember the lyrics of the song, St. Louis to Joplin, Missouri, Oklahoma City looking mighty pretty. You'll see Amarillo, Joplin, Amarillo, Flagstaff, Arizona. After Amarillo.
Don't forget Winona.
Don't forget Winona, Flagstaff, Arizona. Don't forget Winona, Kingman, Barstow, San Bernardino. Okay. So, first of all, Electric Route 66 says that signage is a big issue all across the route, often complicated by the issue of multiple alignments. Thank you for your comment. Now, Springfield, Missouri is the birthplace of Route 66. Oklahoma is the capital of Route 66. And then Arizona is the birthplace of historic Route 66. Would you like to back up for a moment and tell people what those 3 things actually mean?
Absolutely. So we'll start with Springfield, Missouri, because they are the birthplace of Route 66. Whenever this group of guys got together in the 1920s on the behest of the federal government to decide, this automobile is going to be a big thing, we should probably organize a system of numbered federal highways. There was kind of a back and forth about, is the road that connects Chicago to Los Angeles going to be 60 or 66, some 62. And so once they decided that 66 was the way to go, they sent a telegram to Washington, D.C. saying, you know what, we've settled, our issues. 66 is going to be this highway that connects this country together. And so that's the moment that Route 66 came together as something that's going to happen. And they've got a nice big copy of that telegram in the museum there right on the square in Springfield. So they're the birthplace of Route 66. Tulsa claimed the title of capital because Tulsa is the home of Cyrus Avery, who's known as the father of Route 66. he was involved with that group in Springfield and helped Route 66 was his big idea. He came out saying if we could get a highway that started in Chicago, went through St. Louis, and connected all the way to the Pacific Ocean, it's going to be the strongest commercial corridor in the country. And he was right. He also founded the U.S. 66 Highway Association, which is the original national organization designed to promote the road, and originally just encourage folks to pave it in the first place. So Cyrus Avery had a huge part in Route 66's development and kind of starting that ball rolling that turned it into the legendary road that it is today. So Tulsa, um, since he's from here, they said, well, capital of Route 66 is the title that we're going to go after. Tulsa's also invested a ton in Route 66 over the last 20 years, and I'm sure we'll mention that a little bit later. And then Seligman, Arizona is the birthplace of historic Route 66. And that's because of another man, a guy named Angel Delgadillo. When Route 66 was bypassed, he saw the immediate effect it had on his town and stood up and said, well, this isn't right. We're still here. We deserve not only to have an off-ramp from the interstate, but, the road is still worth traveling. And he was very persistent in engaging the state of Arizona to designate the highway there as historic. And the little segment there in Arizona was the very first section of Route 66 designated as historic. He helped found the first statewide historic association there. 2 years later, you had so much more of the highway had achieved that designation. All 8 states had their own historic association. That was really the pebble that started the avalanche that is the preservation movement as it is today.
And if you saw the movie Cars, Seligman is Radiator Springs, right?
So now that's, Radiator Springs is an amalgam of a ton of different places on Route 66. And I'm sure you noticed a lot of towns say, well, we're the real Radiator Springs. Well, we're the real Radiator Springs. Not really a true Radiator Springs, but you definitely have a lot of Seligman influence, especially the landscape for Radiator Springs. For folks that want a single place to go on Route 66 that captures kind of everything that you see in the movie Cars, Seligman does a pretty good job.
And Holbrook for the cozy hotel or whatever it's called, the Cozy Cone, is that what it is?
The Cozy Cone, that's right.
Cozy Cone, which is the Wigwam Hotel. Yeah.
Yep.
It's pretty clear, pretty apparent. Okay, so we talked about planning for the trip, and first you have to figure out how much time you have. Certainly you're going to drive. There are a lot of people who did exactly what I did, in that they flew to Chicago and rented a car. Do you find that many people are doing that, at least from the West Coast?
A lot of people are doing that. And one-way car rentals are quite a bit more expensive, but that's the traditional route. Start in Chicago, end in Santa Monica. Especially international travelers, they'll fly into Chicago, start their trip, and head west. You do have folks that'll go the other way, and there's nothing wrong with that either. The road is full of literal twists and turns, and that's valid whether you're going east or west.
Well, the thing is, if you want to follow the song, you need to start in Chicago. You could always start from somewhere else, but it just seemed the right thing to do. As far as expense, I paid $1,500 for a one-way rental for 3 weeks, which really is not bad at all, I would say. Actually, it was $1,300. I just rented another car to go from Chicago, because I'm actually going back to Chicago. To go from Chicago to Cincinnati was $500. So $1,300 to go cross country, I think it was pretty good, and never had to worry about anything breaking down, and I got great gas mileage, so everything was really good. You want to tell people what's behind you? You talked about Angel from Seligman, so you've got his sign back there.
I do.
Yeah, tell everybody what's back there.
Well, I've got a lot. This is kind of my kind of Route 66 backdrop. So that is indeed a sign from Angel and Vilma's gift shop in Seligman. Right below it is a replica Highway 66 city alignment sign that I had made for a long time, from 59 to 73 in Tulsa. The main alignment of Route 66 was City 66 because it got bypassed by the interstate, but it still had that designation. And I just love that little kind of corner of Route 66 history, so I put that there. The license plate here are my initials and my birth year. This was a wonderful gift from a man named Al Childs. He's got a little roadside attraction in Afton, Oklahoma that's really fun. I have some European license plates here that were given to me by a man named Rhys Bessels. He's been a huge Route 66 supporter internationally for many years, but all kinds of stuff. The Paint by Numbers kit is a motel sign here in Tulsa. This is painted by my wife, but the kit comes from an artist named Rosemary Dougherty here in Tulsa that's super passionate about all things kitschy and roadside. Other plates, and just out of camera, I've got like a canvas and some pictures and my completion certificate from the Santa Monica Pier. And then if you could see the other side of my monitor, like my whole office is full of artifacts and remembrances of my many trips on Route 66 and other parts of the country.
We talked about the time element. Now, you've obviously done the trip. So do you generally do 3 weeks or do you take longer?
So, I mean, at the end of the day, I still got to, Route 66 is a volunteer gig for me with the association. So I still got to earn a paycheck. So I've never done the full end to end in one go. I've done legs of the trip. I've done 3 states at a time. But I've never done start in Chicago, end in Santa Monica in one fell swoop. I may be doing that next year. I'm helping organize a national caravan with the Route 66 Road Ahead Partnership. We're actually going the other way. We're starting in California and going to Chicago, so we encounter more travelers as we're celebrating the centennial. And if that comes together like the way I hope it does, then that'll be my first time doing the whole thing in one go. But
so you could finish off with an omelet at Lou Mitchell's in Chicago.
Oh, I love Lou Mitchell's.
I know, it's so great. So if this is a volunteer job, how do you make a living?
Well, so for the last several years, until last year, I worked for a regional cell phone carrier, US Cellular, in their engineering project management. But they had some changes at the top. They're getting bought out by T-Mobile, and some other things were shifting. And I thought, well, maybe I should try to figure out something else. And right at that exact same time, the National Trust for Historic Preservation had a national Route 66 position come available. So I applied for it and got it. So right now I'm in this little bubble where I am actually earning a paycheck related to Route 66, and that's helping promote the grants the National Trust has, engaging with different communities. So the last few months, I've seen a lot more travel on Route 66 wearing my National Trust hat.
Okay, great. Let's take a moment and look at some pictures here because you've got some great ones. Where's this one? Vic Selling Gas for Less.
This is a beautifully restored sign in Litchfield, Illinois. This is right across from a restaurant called the Ariston, which if you haven't eaten there, it's one of the best on Route 66. Again, I avoid saying the best because everyone's different, but it is up there. And this is a sign that I had on my 2 photograph list for years and years and years because I'd always gone through Litchfield in the middle of the day. And it looks great at daytime too. But I like this picture. Not only does the sign look great, it's a great example of preservation and restoration, but it was just kind of a perfect evening to capture it.
Okay, and let's go to the next one. You got a little log cabin here, a little Photoshop fun, just a little color, a little black and white.
Yep, a little bit of, I desaturated everything but that old neon sign. This is John's Modern Cabins, not too far from Rolla, Missouri. John's Modern Cabins dates back to, I believe, the 1940s, back in Route 66's big day. And it's like a roadside motel where each room was a separate individual cabin. I mean, and back then, some of the rooms weren't even furnished. They basically treated it like camping indoors. This site was actually bypassed multiple times. What's really interesting about this site is they expanded the road, they bypassed Route 66, put the interstate there, and then moved the interstate. So you cross like all these overgrown lanes of concrete to get to these little cabins. Now, I took this a couple of years ago, and all but one of the cabins has now collapsed. You can see it is, just wood and shingle roof, just kind of left out here in the woods, closed in the 1970s. And so this was another spot that was kind of a pilgrimage for me when I first got into Route 66, saying I got to get out here and see this place because it's kind of tucked out here, and unless you know exactly how to get to it, you would never find it. So this picture represents a kind of that period of exploration for me when I was really starting to get involved in the road.
Okay. Somebody has a very nice patriotic car.
Yes, this is in Galena, Kansas. I just took this last year. So this is Ron Jones' 1956 Chevrolet. Ron is known as the tattoo man of Route 66 because he has over 135 tattoos, I think now, all based on Route 66. A really friendly, incredible guy. And his car here was actually restored by the television show Counting Cars. It's just immaculate and beautiful. This is a roadie gathering, and again, I mentioned the people are the best part of Route 66, and this was in tribute to a man named Dean Walker, who is a big Route 66 personality in Kansas. And I just thought this was a really great representation of the people and kind of that the vibe of Route 66 that we all love so much.
This is an old train artifact. Artifact.
It is. This is child sized, and this was 2014. This was really early in my Route 66 journey, and I still can like perfectly picture in my brain. This is just outside of Stroud, Oklahoma. I'm heading back to Tulsa, and I see this out of the corner of my eye, and I slam the brakes on. My poor wife was just like, "What in the world are you doing?" But this was, as you can see, very overgrown and kind of tucked in over here off to the side of the road. And this got me to ask questions and dig. And I found out it was a pipe welder that built this for his grandkids. And it became a little roadside attraction for years with a little metal cactus and some other stuff. Since this picture has been taken, this locomotive has been acquired by the city of Stroud and repainted and restored, and now is part of a little miniature golf course not too far from the Rock Cafe there in town.
Okay, and I love the Rock Cafe, by the way. This is another motel cafe.
This is in Glen Rio, Texas, right on the border of Texas and New Mexico. Glen Rio is probably the most famous ghost town on Route 66. It's at exit 0. This is the old station. This looks much different today than it did when I took this picture. This really was just a couple of years ago, not that long. All of this property has been purchased by a developer, and they're currently working to do some things out on the site. That roof is gone. All the trees are gone. But this, when a lot of people think of Route 66, they think of this. They think of overgrown buildings out in the middle of nowhere, and there is some of that. But the road is more than that. It's alive. It's still evolving, and it's full of amazing experiences. But this is also part of it. And I'm glad I got to see and experience Glen Rio when it was still in this state. It's always worth it to stop, and even if you got to turn around and take a picture, because sometimes that's all that's left after things are all said and done.
Okay, really nice train shot. There's one thing I missed. I forgot to do a big choo-choo train. I saw so many trains that went on and on and on and on and on forever. And that's probably one of the most interesting things about this Route 66 trip is you forget about railroad travel, or really for business, and what a big deal it is.
Yeah, especially out west where the road parallels train tracks for so long. This is near the town of Manuelito, right on the New Mexico-Arizona border. Very early in the morning, I was really excited to get to Hallbrook for a tour the National Park Service was giving at the Painted Desert. And so I left Gallup super early in the morning. And I pull over to get a picture of these mesas in the background, and I see that light of that engine coming, and I just kind of wait for it. And this is one of those things, like I kind of mentioned earlier, where it's just a perfect combination of the right place, right time, and taking the time to just sit, wait for the train to come, get a couple of pictures, and take a breath. If you're just trying to get somewhere as fast as possible, you miss stuff like this.
Yeah, well, you shouldn't be on Route 66 if that's your mindset. You should be on the big highway. The classic, the Jack Rabbit from the Jack Rabbit shop, and the sign is everywhere.
The Jack Rabbit Trading Post. I love Cindy and Tony, the owners here. Multi-generation owned business on Route 66. And you've got the highway right here. And if you look, like, I don't know if you're able to move my profile to the right a little bit, but this is one of those segments of Route 66 where you can see the interstate right over there. You can see the big trucks traveling, and there's that line from the movie Cars where Lightning says, they're missing it. And, a lot of the highway is just off to the side of the interstate. And, mom and pop businesses are the lifeblood of this highway. They help make the road the experience that it is today. And so it's so important when people travel Route 66 to stop, visit with the owners, and buy something, even if it's just a little tchotchke or a Coke or something. That's how these folks stay open in an age of digital purchases and getting where you're going as fast as possible. But I love the Jackrabbit. I stop anytime I'm out that way.
And it seems to be what they mostly are selling there are "Here it is" signs. Little replicas of it, right?
It is, yeah. So the history.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. We had a great
The
time there.
history, the history behind that is back in the day, they would distribute these signs all up and down Route 66, these little wooden planks with a little painting of a rabbit like that, and then a mileage number. That's it. And so as families were traveling Route 66, that number would tick down, but it wouldn't really tell you what you're ticking down to. And then finally, as on the edge of Joseph City, Arizona, here it is. This is what all these little signs have been pointing you to this whole time. And people come from all over the world and take little metal replicas with them now home. There are mileage signs on the other side of the planet with thousands and thousands, a huge number on it, because it's just a great way to remember your trip.
Yeah. What do we got next? Oh, is that it? Come on, come back.
Might have been. I had to be very
Oh,
selective
oh,
when I
no,
when.
no, no, no.
Oh, here we
So
go.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I live in California. I live near the Santa Monica Pier. Never seen this before. So you photographed this at the pier?
This is just north of the pier in the park, just a couple of footsteps just north of that. Uh, Route 66 was known as the Will Rogers Highway going back to 1935, right after the famous, I'll say, personality passed away in a plane crash. He was way more than, a guy on the radio. He was in movies, he was in newspapers, he was kind of everywhere at the time. And so they named the highway after him. And then in 1952, there was this big national caravan to mark a movie coming out that his son was starring as his father. It's called The Will Rogers Story. Warner Brothers did that. And part of this caravan was they had these markers installed at each state border. There aren't very many left today, but this one is planted in the ground right there overlooking the Pacific Ocean. And the very first time I went to California after Route 66 had become part of my life, I sought this marker out because, of course, Will Rogers is arguably the most famous Oklahoman that lived. And it was important for me to stop and pay tribute. And anytime I'm out at the pier, I walk up and say hi to Will.
And he would love to say hi as well. This is Tulsa. I passed by this, but never at the right time. This is near the Neon Park, correct?
That's right. This is on the western part of Route 66 in Tulsa. Uh, in the mid 2000s, Tulsa established a fund for Route 66 development. It was part of the city's master plan to pay attention to it. For years and years, nobody really paid attention to Route 66 in Tulsa. It was just another road in town. And a group of citizens got together, convinced city leadership that this was something worth investing in. One of the first things that was built for this were these great deco inspired gateways on the east and west side of town, letting you know you're on Route 66 and you're in the city of Tulsa. And everything after that is kind of extrapolated from that investment and from that belief. We have a commission that meets every month of citizens and city councilors that talk about Route 66, the Neon Sign Grant Program that we have that's been very successful. Came out of that. Same with that neon sign park that you mentioned, which is just like 2 miles from where this picture was taken. All kinds of development, again, that led to Tulsa claiming the title capital of Route 66 because of that investment of many millions of dollars. And this, again, was just a lucky shot. I was leading a tour bus through Tulsa, highlighting some Route 66 sites, and the sun started to set, and boy, those clouds lit up. And I got to be careful. I'll run out in the street, and I got to make sure I'm watching for traffic when that happens because the photographer takes over.
I'll bet. What else do we have here? Okay, so this is one of mine here. This cracked me up. This was in Needles, California. A home of Elvis. Elvis has a lot to do with Econo Smog and Tune, as you know. So I just found it was very iconic, and I don't think Elvis ever went to Needles, California. But anyway, that was fun. And what else do I have here? That's the 66 Drive-In Theater that we talked about that is open on Friday and Saturday evenings from April till September, I believe it is, right?
Yeah, a lot of the drive-ins are seasonal that way because then it's on to something else. But this one is another really great restoration story. With great neon out front, and if you're going to stay in Carthage to go to the drive-in, you got to stay at the Boots Court Motel too.
Okay. We'll try to remember that. What else? That's the midpoint line in Adrian, Texas, where people like to sit in the middle of the road, and it's so quiet there that they can, right?
It is, yeah. You've got this is right by the Midpoint Cafe, the Fabulous 40 Motel, and Dreammaker Station, all kind of there in a row. But just to the left of here is that great little sign saying you're halfway on Route 66, and a super popular photo op. I've seen rows of motorcyclists line all of their bikes here along that line and have their picture taken. It's a fun little place.
Okay. This is in Tucumcari. There's a lot of great neon in Tucumcari, as Rhys, you would know, right? The Blue Swallow
Yes,
Hotel is right across the street.
yep, you can see a little bit of their sign there in the background. Yeah, teepee's great. Gar Ingman has done a really great job of keeping this tradition alive, of this great little curio shop, and keeping that sign lit. The whole city of Tucumcari was hit by a devastating hailstorm a couple of years ago, and I'm happy to say that most of the neon has been fully restored since then.
Oh, great. Okay. And finally, my last shot, Tulsa, Oklahoma. The Meadow Gold neon sign. This is part of Neon Row 11th Street, I believe it is. And it's probably the showpiece of the 11th Street neon, right? Wouldn't you say?
Yes, I agree with you. This sign is original to the 1930s. It is massive, and there's a whole district named after it now, and it's really become a an icon of Route 66, not just in Tulsa but in Oklahoma. And that's a really great shot. It's being as old as it is and as big as it is. It's very finicky, and so there's usually one little piece off somewhere, and you caught it perfectly. All the neon is lit, so we'll take it.
Yeah. Same thing with the Blue Swallow Inn. I think the B was out on one side, and so I had to take it on the other side. Most people do it on this side, but I didn't want to have the missing letter. You have any thoughts
It's
about the tips on shooting neon? I'll just give you the basic: be there at the right time. You have 1 hour, that one little 1 hour window, right, before it gets too dark.
Yeah, and you have different practices for people. Some folks like to take pictures of neon at full dark, and that takes a camera where you can do manual settings and figure that out so that it doesn't try to wash out the picture. Uh, I'm more of like what you have, where you have that kind of blue out, that dusk shot, that because then you get the sign, the cabinet, the building around it, the context of it. That's my favorite time to take picture of neon. You're always best if you've got something where you can control the shutter so that you get as much light as you want, and your especially cell phones. It's really difficult on most cell phones to get a good neon shot because it tries to compensate for that bright light, and it
I've
really
not had,
blasts out everything else.
yeah, I've not had problems if you're there at the right time. As
Yep.
that shot was taken on here. All those photos were taken on here on my iPhone.
And newer
iPhone.
phones do much better than older ones.
Okay, so the iPhone 16, really good. Just be there at the right time. Just be there right after sunset, 15, 20 minutes. And one thing I did for the you drop in Shamrock was I love the neon, but I wanted some neon color streaks on the ground that you would normally get in the rain. So I went out and I bought 3-gallon jugs of water and I splashed it all over the place. But 3 gallons isn't enough. I needed 10. I needed 10 to really do it, and I didn't. By that point it was too late. But
A
that's
valiant effort.
yeah, we tried anyway. Rhys, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. If you haven't seen it already, part 1 of my Route 66 journey is out on YouTube. You can watch it now. Part 2 will be out on Scripps News Sunday morning, 10 o'clock Eastern Time. That's Missouri to Galena, Kansas. And the Oklahoma episode will be the following week. Rhys, I believe, is in every one of them because he's so well spoken. I found some way to get you in there. Yeah, king of the sound bites. Rhys, if people have questions, would like to get in touch with you, want to know more about Route 66, where do they go? How do they find you?
Best place I would say is to go to oklahomaroute66.com. I've been president of the Oklahoma Route 66 Association since 2019, and we're very proud of that website. It's got a lot of resources on it. And as I've said to a few people, you can't say resource without saying Rhys. So if you want to reach out directly, there's an About Us page with a link to my email. You can also just contact the central there, and our director will get you in touch with me. But I also have a pretty wide digital footprint. If you're in any of the Facebook groups or Blue Sky or any of that, you can find me, and I'm always happy to answer questions.
All right. Thank you again, Rhys. Thanks you for meeting me in Tulsa and meeting me right here. Let's keep Route 66 alive and have some fun. Everybody needs to go out and do it at least once in their life, if not more, because I can't wait to go do it again. It was that great.
That's right.
Th-
And thank you, Jeff. And remember, Route 66 is not just about the centennial, it's about the next 100 years. So get out there and enjoy it.
All righty. Thanks again.